travel writer. And Ken is trying to pull off a scheme that is not at all friendly. Though to his credit, he feels bad about what he's doing. So explain what just happened here.
Warbles on a lot.
To
YouTube.
Had about 4 hours sleep.
Sunday night tomorrow, This American
I
Life.
was nervous about trying something new. What I just did was I clamped these two pieces of plastic that look like the monsters from Alien, like those little alien heads, and they're clamps. You basically slide these clamps onto your tray table, and it prevents the person in front of you from tilting back and slamming into your knees, if you're a tall man like I am.
He read about these clamps on the internet, thought that is simultaneously the most inventive and the most passive-aggressive gadget he'd ever heard of. It's called the Knee Defender. And as a tall guy who flies 2 or 3 times a month for his job, he decided he had to try them. Attaching the clamps to the arms of his tray table was simple, but next came the part that kept Ken awake the night before.
The makers of the Defender have something called a courtesy card that you're supposed to then hand to the person in front of you to let them know you're deploying the Knee Defender clamps. So I just tapped the woman's shoulder in front of me, said, "This message is for you."
The card says, "This is a Knee Defender courtesy card, TM, trademark. I am using Knee Defender, TM. Knee Defender, TM is a small plastic device that helps me protect myself by limiting how much the seat in front of me can recline. I wanted to let you know about this." And then underneath, Ken checked the box that said that her seat would be able to recline 2 inches. Ken had been scared that handing this to somebody, he was going to end up in some horrible argument with a stranger on a plane. He's Canadian. To put too fine a point on that. He just doesn't like confrontation. We discuss what happens next. And remember, as we discuss this, we're sitting in the row directly behind the woman that he handed the card to, hoping that she cannot hear us because of the noise of the plane, which is louder than you might think.
So I handed her the card, and then my hands were sweaty and shaky. So for about a minute, I just sort of was paralyzed. Eventually, she handed me the card back, and slight nod of her head, didn't say a word. Then I asked her, "Hey, are you okay with this?" And then her tone changed. She sounded very cranky and said, "Yeah, you don't see me moving my seat back, do you?"
And then you and I are sitting next to each other. You wrote a little note on a piece of paper. Do you want to just read what it said?
Yeah, I wrote a little note to you because I couldn't really talk. And yeah, my note said, "I feel like a total dick right now." I mean, how would you feel? Would you feel comfortable doing this?
Me, no.
Yeah, if someone did this to me, I'd think, man, you're just being a bully. And I would immediately start looking for cues in their behavior beyond the card that I'd be looking for extra reasons to hate them. So, yeah, I'm conflicted right now because, hey, I got some space here. My knees feel good. I'm still being a yeah, I'm getting away with it.
Well, you're getting away with it in the sense that her chair is up. But you're not getting away with it in the sense of she probably thinks you're
Absolutely true. Yeah.
This is not the kind of getting away with it that most of us want. Most of us want total getting away with it, which means we don't just get our way. In addition, nobody thinks badly of us. You know? Nobody judges. That's what we want. That's just as true for grown men as for little boys. Do you think you're going to use the courtesy card and the Knee Defender again?
I will absolutely use the Knee Defender again. The card? I don't think I'm ever going to use this again. No, I feel too bad.
So basically, your hope is going to be that the people, when they try to push their seat back, they're just going to think, oh, the seat's broken.
Yeah, basically, I'm going to be a sneak. Be tricky, let them believe the seat's broken.
I totally relate to that choice. I think lots of us are like this. Sneaks on a plane. If we can get away with something completely, with no one ever knowing, nobody judging us, and just as important, nobody really hurt. We give it a shot. Today on our program, we have
Just checking to see this thing is in fact still recording. Yep.
Put one over, trying to get away with it. Some of them justifying it by saying that they are doing it for others, greater good. Some not bothered with that. They just don't care. We have a dad hauling marijuana for the sake of his family. We have you, our listeners, setting things on fire and cheating in school. We have politicians lying in a wholesale and utterly effective way for the sake of 4-year-olds. Stay with us. Take your kids to work good. Of course, the most important thing, if you want to get away with some kind of wrongdoing, is that you have a plan. A foolproof, well-thought-out plan. With safeguards and contingencies along the way to guard against everything you could think of that could possibly go wrong. Domingo Martinez has this story about his parents. Plan of theirs. Here's our stuff.
By 1986, Dad had become a truck driver with nothing left to haul but marijuana. Through his early 30s, he could do little with the trucking business he'd inherited from Grandpa, except watch as it crumbled around him. Back then, he began his days by throwing open the door to the bedroom I shared with my brother Dan. He'd stand there in his underwear, looking like a tall, diapered child, and say, "You two get up." He would end the day drinking a lot of $1.50 Budweisers at the shanty bars that littered the port of Brownsville. At home, Mom kept the bookkeeping. She watched the flow of money slow to a trickle and then stop outright when I was in middle school. My brother, sisters, and I knew things were dire when our mother stopped shopping at El Centro Supermarket, the nice grocery store, as she'd always told us, and started bringing home bags from Lopez Supermarket, the poor people grocery store. One morning, Mom surprises me by showing up at my 7th grade algebra class and removing me, getting us on the road out of Brownsville, headed north. There's no explanation. "Siéntate y cállate," she snaps at me. "Sit down and shut up." I don't know why I didn't guess what we were doing that morning. That Mom and I were lookouts for Dad, who was on the road somewhere behind us in one of his flatness tractor trailers, carrying a large load of marijuana and headed north. I had heard the stories, knew some of the tactics of smuggling by this point, but I didn't make the connection. That Mom and I were driving ahead of Dad to make sure the customs station was closed, and if it happened to be open, we were supposed to turn back and warn him. This was back in the 1980s, before the Patriot Act, when there were 2 U.S. Customs checkpoints blocking the migration of drugs, fruit, people, reptiles, and parrots on the roads between the United States and Mexico, both about 100 miles north of the Mexican border at highway choke points. In green Border Patrol garb, sitting on a reclining chair in the open doorway of the Airstream trailer. He's facing the car.
Sorry about that pause. The battery decided to be flat.
110 degrees inside the trailer, 100 in the shade. From his position, never bothering to get up, the agent sits fanning himself with the newspaper and sleepily peers into the cars, asking if everyone is an American citizen, waiting for an accented answer, smiling, and then waving them through, like a sympathetic priest granting absolution. "Hi, where y'all going to today?" asks the skinny little man.
I figure you missed 4 minutes.
The window is now only halfway open, and in her nervousness, she rolls it all the way up. "Hi, sorry, I mean San Antonio," as she opens the window. "Y'all American citizens?" "Yes," she says, and she leans back so he can get a clear look at me, nodding my head. I don't say anything except a quiet "yep" or a nod, but he has not heard me. There's an uncomfortable pause, I think because they're supposed to hear your accent. There is an anxious beat, and he still hasn't let us go, when I say, "Yes, I am," a bit too enthusiastically. Mom laughs nervously. She had been hoping our light skin would exonerate us, without a problem. "We'll have a nice day," he says, like he hasn't noticed anything awkward. We drive through, and I feel her seethe for the next few miles. That was about noon. Somewhere behind us, at a roadside rest stop, Dad and my older brother Dan are waiting in Dad's tractor trailer, which is attached to the trailer with the marijuana. The two center I-beams that run the length of the trailer make perfect housing once you weld metal plates all along the underside and at the tail end. It creates a long rectangular box sealed at the rear end with the axle of the rig, where 20 40-pound blocks of marijuana can be hidden. This is what Dad and Dan are carrying. I wondered dimly if Dan has figured out what he's doing out here, on the road north, when he should be in high school. But Dan has always been more streetwise, much savvier than me. I figured that if I figured it out, he'd have figured it out long before. Mom and I drive on to Hebbronville. I'm dehydrated. I want to stop at a store. We can't, she says to me. We have to turn back. I think we're behind. Still, I'm hungry and really thirsty, so I persist. Certainly enough time to get to a convenience store. They can't have scheduled this thing to hinge on a few minutes. Certainly they devised this more cleverly than that. Please, I plead, just stop at the 7-Eleven. Grudgingly, she pilots the noisy car around the small town and finds a convenience store. I get out with a couple of dollars and come up short when I try paying for some donuts and a chocolate milk. I return to the car for more money. Just get in, she yells, and I do, leaving the food at the counter. Mom whips the car around and I'm in trouble. Used to it by now. We travel like that for a few minutes, and when the checkpoint is back in sight, we hold our breath so the guy won't see us, and right then we see Dad and Dan and the trailer heading right for the checkpoint. Dad had become nervous, or maybe brave, or maybe he was blinded by his $100 faith in his curandera, and had charged forth without waiting for Mom's report. Oh God, my mother says, and all the blood drains from my face from just a tone in her voice. I had never heard her voice so charged with fear. Oh God, she says again. With her left hand, she grabs the knob that controls the headlights and flashes at Dad, who is only a few hundred feet from the checkpoint. She flashes 4 times, in clear view of anyone who is paying attention. I wonder if that is her signal that the checkpoint is open, but question the wisdom of doing it while he is next in line, in full view of the guy at the checkpoint, were he to look over his shoulder and see the noisy southbound car that just drove through not 30 minutes before. She slows down, slows terrifically down, going less than 20 miles per hour on the highway, and for a moment I can see Dad is driving. I can see that the blood is drained from his face, too, making his eyebrows stand out a rich black on his pallid, deathly white forehead, a mask of someone pretending desperately that everything is A-okay, but doing it horrifically badly. I see Dan in the passenger seat, holding on to the handrail above the door as a means to steady himself through this craziness, through this stupid, unnecessary risk, and he looks calm, collected, uncaring, like he isn't there.
Don't think drug runners should take their children on the run.
There are no cars ahead of him now. The trailer is next in line. It slows to a crawl, and I can see Dad desperately trying to ignore the crazy, flashing, noisy bonneville rattling through the southbound lane, keeping his eyes fixed to the road, pretending like he isn't smuggling anything in the empty trailer behind him. This empty, useless trailer with the I-beams all sealed up, with the 2 Mexican men driving it, with no obvious destination, no paperwork, no affiliation with any hauling or trucking company. No, sir. Not trafficking in drugs. Just driving through. To Houston, probably. Looking for work. Oh, yes. We're American citizens. That's not why we're nervous. We can prove that. That's nothing. We're nervous because of the pot we're hiding. And because we're only getting $2,000 for risking upwards of 10 years in prison. Isn't that funny? Isn't that just hysterical? But the skinny white guy is having lunch and can't be bothered.
Beginner's luck.
In one of the weirder moments of this whole debacle, the Bonneville, the Airstream, and Dad's tractor are all lined up like some cosmic event, and we see the skinny Border Patrol agent with a white napkin tucked under his chin, and Dad's bloodless face up in the trailer through the window of the Airstream, as the agent waves him through with a fork, like he's conducting an orchestra. Go on through. Go on through. Mom continues driving south, stunned by what has just happened, and I am careful not to say a word. We almost reach Raymondville and stop at a Whataburger to get a quick, wordless lunch, and spend some time sitting in a parking lot, waiting. When she feels it is safe to return, she turns the car around and heads back north, back through the same checkpoint. Are you sure this is safe? I ask. She doesn't answer. When we pull up again to the checkpoint, headed back to Heavenville around 3 o'clock, there was a different Border Patrol agent at the airstream. He is a small, clean-cut militant Mexican with a southern drawl. You all American citizens? He demands instantly, leaning into the car through the window, clearly smelling for marijuana smoke. Oh yes, says my mother, who's probably quite relieved the hard part is over, and it looks like we're getting away with it. How about you, son? You American citizen? He gives me a direct glare through reflective sunglasses. There is nothing more potentially hostile than the indigenous ego interpreting the laws of his conqueror upon his own people. Yes, sir, they say, careful not to move my attention or look away on that road. He looks back at my mother, then at me, like he feels the nervousness of earlier. Something tugs at his attention. Where are y'all headed? His glasses finally ask. This catches Mom off guard. Her subterfuge had ended when Dad had driven through the checkpoint. She left all her answers back in Raymondville. We're going to Heavenville, she says unconvincingly. Had he asked one more question, had he pressed it, we would have been in some sort of trouble. But he doesn't, and he backs off and motions us through. Mom drives a nosy car through Heavenville, and we're about to hit the open highway again, when we notice Dad's trailer in the parking lot of a cheap motel by the side of the road. My brother is lodged between the rearmost tires, looking on the brake lights that, ridiculously, aren't working. Mom is as alarmed to find them there as I am. This confirms my suspicion that there had been no planning beyond the consultation at the curanderas. This whole debacle had been based on nothing more than $100 worth of faith. Mom pulls up next to the trailer, and I think she expects a victorious reunion. When he sees her, Dad suddenly looks like he's about to punch her. Stupid woman, he yells at her in Spanish. Mom stops cold. What the are you thinking? If they would have just turned around for a moment, it would all be over, and it would all be your fault, he spits at her in Spanish. We realize what he's upset about, the flashing headlights. His words continue to snap and hiss around her like bullets in a firefight, and she follows him forward to the cab of the truck, kowtowing to her punishment. Lucky for us, La Senora was right, Dad says, walking back with Mom, now excited and seemingly over his anger. She made them blind, and we would look through like they were closed.
That's weird. I'm going to change the point of view.
When we left the road at that evening, Dan was doing the driving. I pulled out of the parking lot and headed off to Houston.
And we're going to start a new movie.
Stuff